Good evening. My name is Barsha Mondal, and I am a part-time lecturer in the Department of English, Ravindra Bharati University, Center for Distance and Online Learning, Kolkata. I welcome you to the stories of tribal identity and culture that will explore the role of tribal history and tribal representation in history in shaping cultural identity and ideology, curated under TMYS Review December 2024 in collaboration with the Center for Asia Pacific Initiatives, University of Victoria. We are also calling for submission of essays, poems, and short stories under this project. To know more about the submission guidelines and the project architecture, please visit www.tellmeyourstory.biz. This evening, I consider myself very privileged to be in the company of our esteemed panelists, Dr. Panchali Bhattacharya, Dr. K. Jose, and Dr. Prakash Tripathi, who will shortly share their views and insights with us. The topic for today's discussion is role of environmental consciousness in cross-culturalization. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our speakers. Our first speaker for the session is Dr. Panchali Bhattacharya. Dr. Bhattacharya is an assistant professor of English in the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, National Institute of Technology, Silchar, Assam. She has completed her PhD from the School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Management, IIT Bhubaneswar. Her research interest primarily focuses on the ecological wisdom of the indigenous communities with a special emphasis on the northeastern region of India. Presently, she is working on a collaborative research project on the connection between religion and environmental sustainability in the context of certain tribal groups of Northeast India. We are delighted to have you on the panel, Dr. Bhattacharya. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our second speaker for the session is Dr. Prakash Tripathi. Dr. Tripathi is a cultural anthropologist with 6 plus years of post PhD experience in art and culture, cultural mapping, intangible cultural heritage, tribal culture and development, traditional wisdom, and ecological conservation practices. He is currently working in the Janapada Sampada Division, Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, IGNCA, as a researcher. IGNCA is an autonomous research institute under the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. He received his BSc in Life Science from the University of Allahabad in 2007 and an MSc in Anthropology from the University of Delhi in 2009. His PhD on the topic titled Impact of Changing Environmental Condition on the Health of the Jaunsari Tribe of Uttarakhand was awarded under the School of Human Ecology, Ambedkar University, Delhi. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Tripathi. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our third speaker for the session is Dr. K. Jose. Dr. K. Jose completed his studies in MA Sociology from Indore Christian College, Indore, an MPhil from Institute of Advanced Studies and Research in Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya under Indore University. After completing his doctorate in Northeast India Studies from Assam Don Bosco University, he has undertaken many original studies on anthropology of Northeast India and has done extensive researches on various facets of the people of Northeast India with special reference to Arunachal Pradesh. For the past 17 years, he is the founder and director of Sanskriti, Northeastern Institute of Cultural Research. He has edited 39 volumes in English which pertain to various facets of Northeast India. A very warm welcome to you, Dr. Jose. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will now open the forum for discussion. I would request Dr. Bhattacharya to share her insights. Ma'am, over to you now.
Okay, thank you so much, Barsha, for that gracious introduction. And I really feel privileged to be a part of this forum today with all these eminent personalities. It's really an honor. And most importantly, like I was saying, that this topic, the topic that I'm going to speak on today, is really very close to my heart. So let me just share with you whatever insights I have gained over the last few years during my doctoral research and post that. So Before I get into the topic straight away, let me just introduce it briefly. So, uh, what I feel is that it is a generally accepted idea that, environmental crisis that we are facing in the world right now, the world is experiencing this because it is a direct result of human intervention. Some form of anthropogenic activity that is going on around us is leading to this kind of environmental crisis. Now, which is of course very true, but what we do not take into consideration, or which is very less discussed, is that I feel that what kind of relationship human beings actually share with nature that leads to this kind of activities, that is an area which is very less talked about. So, in my discussion, I'll bring some communities, reference to some communities that I have closely observed during the tenure of my doctoral dissertation, and I will share my experience of interacting with them, my experience of reading their literary creations from the members of the community, the kind of literary creations that have come out. So my experience of reading them, and what it means to be environmentally conscious in a world that is so fast and so rapidly changing with each and every day. So my focus in my discussion will be Northeast India in general. I will not specify any one particular community. So when I talk about Northeast India, basically it's if you think about Northeast India, the region has always been exoticized. So the perception of mainland India about Northeast is that of exoticization, some stereotypes here and there, and a place which is, tourism friendly, and there are it's lush green, and so many tribes are there. So the idea that we usually have is very generic, I can say. But during my research, and as and when I and now that I am working there, I live in close quarters with these communities. What I have experienced is that uh, all these things that I said, the perceptions that mainland India has about Northeast India, they are true. They are not absolutely true. Like, for example, Northeast India is one of the 25 major biodiversity hotspots in the whole world. Okay, and there are more than 475 ethnic groups and groups who inhabit the various nooks and corners of this region. So it is quite obvious that it is a hotspot of ethnocultural diversity, with lots of diverse flora and fauna. Some of them are very rare species. So there is something happening there, because of which, in spite of so much of global climate crisis and environmental change, the Northeast of India has been able to retain its ecological pristineness, if I may call it that. Now, what is the reason behind that? If we walk down that lane, the reason primarily is the kind of relationship that the indigenous communities share with their immediate natural surrounding. So what do I imply by this is that when the indigenous, it's not that these communities, when I say that they are maintaining the ecological sanctity around them, I do not imply that they do it because these are their sources of these are their like the forest or the greenery around them provide them with resources for sustenance. It's not just that. This environmental dependence or the ecological harmony that these communities nurture is a way of life. It's a spiritual practice. It's something that they do not intentionally. This is something that they have nurtured from generations. This has been going on, like their forefathers have been respecting nature in a certain way, and that has been passed on through generations, mostly through oral lores, folklore. That is a very important part of their the characteristics of those communities. So storytelling is a major part of their community characteristic. Through stories, this kind of knowledge have passed on from one generation to another for years, and that is still continuing. Now, I do not by saying this, I do not intend in any way that Northeast India is not developing. It is developing. There, of course, that is inevitable. Development and environmental hazard kind of goes hand in hand. So Northeast and the communities that I'm talking about, they are not exempted of that. But in spite of that, there are certain things about these communities which enables them to maintain the co-cultural sanctity of their region. Okay, now I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say, for example, if you have heard of it, the Khasis and the Jaintiyas of Meghalaya, they have sacred groves. Sacred groves are there in Kerala as well, like in the Kavu, and here it's called the sacred groves. So I have been to Meghalaya a number of times, and I have seen the kind of reverence that these Jaintiyas and Khasis and Garos, they have towards this sacred grove. So what the idea is that a certain portion of the jungle is marked as sacred. So they believe in a religious sanctity of the of that particular area, and as a result, what they do is they do not touch the trees over there. They do not cut down the trees, even though they need some resource. They let that particular portion of the forest untouched. So in a way, it is a religious practice for them. But if you think about it, in the long run, that what it is doing, it is actually preserving nature. And this kind of sacred groves are there throughout Meghalaya. Okay, now if we talk about Nagaland, so the Tenimia Nagas. Okay, Tenimia Nagas, they believe in this concept of Rarhuria. So again, they believe that a certain part of a forest is spirit infested. Okay, now it's not that they consider it to be unholy to go there. It's just that they believe uh, uh, in a kind of lifestyle where human beings and non-human beings stay in a state of equilibrium. So in order to not disturb these spirits, they keep that part of the forest untouched. Okay, so just see how each state over there and the communities that are inhabiting there, they have this kind of very small practices, which in the long run is actually facilitating the preservation of nature. Then the Siang River, that is the Brahmaputra. Now, the Adis and Mishmi tribes of Arunachal Pradesh, they have many rituals. A lot of their rituals are river oriented. Okay, so what they do is they prevent the river from getting polluted. So they assert and they attribute certain rituals, traditions, practices, customs, and by implementing those customs, the ultimate outcome is preservation of the natural world. That is what is happening. Then many communities over there, like the Adi tribe, they practice, they consider the sun and moon as their god. So the Doni Polo, attributing divinity in each and every natural object. That is what pantheism talks about, right? So attributing, I God is all and all is God. That is the basic fundamental principle of pantheism. This is exactly what these communities believe in, and in the long run, this faith or this belief system of attributing divine spirit on everything surrounding us is leading to environmental preservation. Now, what is interesting is that all these things I talked about right now, there are many agricultural festivals, like you must have heard of Bihu in Assam, then Wangala of the Garos, Parkut of the Mizos. So these are very culturally niche agricultural festivals, which these communities are actually practicing for a very long time. For generations, they are practicing this. Now, what I found interesting is all these practices that we are talking about is kind of getting reflected through the literature of the region. So for a very long time, the perception of Northeast literature has been characterized by violence, insurgency, political upheavals, socio-political turbulence. Now a generation of writers, they are coming up, who are bringing this ethnic diversity of their region to the fore. They are writing in English, a language that is accessible to a large number of readership. And let's say, for example, Mamangdai. When Mamangdai wrote the Legends of Pensem, she has very clearly mentioned about the pantheistic worldview that the Adi tribe follows and how that leads to environmental preservation. Then Eastern Kire writing When the River Sleeps. At each and every page you will see that as the protagonist is taking the journey through the jungle, how each and every element of the nature is being venerated by him. So he knows what is an antidote, he knows how to use that antidote, and also this protagonist knows how to not misuse that antidote, so that we can preserve the nature the way it is for the subsequent generations to come. So this is how tribal literature coming from the northeast of India is actually making a very wide and very significant use of this tribal consciousness of environment, tribal ecological philosophy. These writers are bringing out. So Isterin Kire, Janhavi Barua, Mamang Dai, Mitra Fukan. Then I have also worked on another writer from Nagaland, a Lotha Naga writer. She is very young, Jasmine Payton, Sanmonji's Jasmine Payton, A Girl Swallowed by the Tree. So what she is doing there, she is basically translating 30 folk tales of the Lotha Naga community into English. And each of these tales tells us something about the environmental consciousness of the Lotha Naga community. See how uniquely they are presenting their secrets to the world, and also telling us that this can be the kind of environmental consciousness that the tribal communities of Northeast India they possess, that can actually be a local answer to the global climate crisis that we are facing. Maybe it is not yet a part of the mainstream environmental pedagogy, but that can also be a potential answer. It's just that we are not exploring it, or maybe it can also be that because we are not exploring it, it is still there. Once the capitalist bioprospecting starts, once bioprospecting and biopiracy starts, all this kind of knowledge that this community is very closely keep within their community will become general, and that will also lead to a number of external hazards that might not be very suitable for the sustainability of that community. So that's why I mentioned that each and every aspect of today's discussion, the pantheistic worldview, be it the ecological consciousness and the tribal literature, it just perfectly fits into the northeast of India, because the region that I'm talking about is a hub of ethnic communities. It is a major biodiversity hotspot, and the literature coming out from the region is in the 21st century, more precisely, they are exploring these things to a massive extent. And nature there is not just a backdrop, it's not just a silent backdrop, it's a character that interacts with the reader and tells that this is what we are doing and this is what we are doing right. So maybe this is something that we can have a further discussion. Do I have some more time, or should I pass it on to somebody else?
Ma'am, you can take 2 minutes more if you want.
Okay. So like I was saying, like a couple of other examples I will just share over here. Recently I came across a book. I read one book that is Rashmi Narzari. So she is also a writer from Assam. So she has written a book called His Share of Sky. So it is about a small 10-year-old Bodo boy. Okay, and how this boy in the years of his growing up, from his childhood to his early adolescence, how he is learning the little nuances of his own tribe, the nuances that tells him that how nature is supposed to be protected. So it's not that the elders of the village, they are telling him that okay, you should not do this and that's how we'll preserve nature. It's not like that. It's just that certain things he sees the elders doing. Like for example, there is this reference to one particular jhum cultivation. I'm sure we all are aware of it. So jhum cultivation he talks about. So he sees that how jhum cultivation, apparently if you see that jhum cultivation is actually, the process is very destructive to the land. But the same process, although it does not seem to be sustainable, the way the community associated with it is helping the natural landscape regenerate itself is giving him a bigger lesson. So this is how the writers, they are bringing up the problems, providing the solutions. And particularly because these writers, mostly the ones that I'm talking about, they write about the communities that they belong to. So what is happening, we can take them as a voice. I'm not going into the intricacies of authenticity or whether we are trying to appropriate their ideology. It's not like that. I'm just telling that these writers who were till now perhaps not part of the mainstream canon, literary canon, they are bringing out things, they are bringing out writings, they are bringing out ideas which perhaps will be a very good lesson for each one of us who have even the slightest bit of environmental consciousness in our mind. This can be a very good manifesto for all of us, probably. Okay, that's it from my part as of now.
Thank you, ma'am. That was very insightful. I was like literally thinking how these communities do not, like, in our mainstream society, we consider nature as completely the other. It's not a part of
Yes.
human life. But they are like, no, this is an indispensable part of human life. It cannot be separated.
So,
Thank you
so
so much.
it's just that Varsha, what you
Yeah.
mentioned is a very pertinent point. That the moment we consider something as other, there is
Yes,
always a sense of binary there. And the
exactly.
moment you think that this is not something that is other than us, nature is
Yes,
something that is within us, you start
yes.
respecting it. You start taking care of it in a completely different way. Thank you for
Yes,
bringing
ma'am.
that up. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker for the session is Dr. Prakash Tripathi. Over to you, sir, now.
Am I audible? Am I audible, Barsha?
Yes, sir, you
Yes.
are audible.
Okay, thank you. Very good evening to all of you, and I'm very thankful to Varsaji and the TMYS team to invite me for such a interesting topic and insights where we have a speaker like Panchali ma'am who talked about a lot of how the environment and the communities in northeastern India are intricately associated with each other, how their dependency, their work, their culture, their lifestyle is, imbibed with that the nature which is where they are living in. Since I was supposed to speak more on the tribal art and literature, and I have during my research journey in IGNCA, I did research on Kunds of Madhya Pradesh, I went through with their paintings. I went through with their uh, literature, which and I also contributed in some way by in the book Gond Ramayani. So as Bhattacharya ma'am rightly says that the tribals are the one who live with the nature, who evolve with the nature, and who do not think that nature is something which is apart, means that is other thing. It is not other thing. It's a very part of them. So I used to say that tribals are basically the protector, the conservator, and the custodian of the forest and the natural resources. If you look at the pattern of tribal distribution in India, you'll find that most of the green patches on the India's map are those areas where the tribals are residing, and they are they are protecting those forests from a very long period. And yeah, development is, we all know, is necessary evil, and we all have to accept it. But uh, there was a research, I just want to mention that in that research it was that it was by man, I use in my PhD topic, and it shows that the impact of the environmental degradation are mostly borne by those who are at the margin or who are the poorest. So whatever development, whatever developmental policies we people make, the wrath of those harsh anti-environmental things are basically faced by those people who are actually the protecting their forest. Whether we are talking about the Zoom, what ma'am has talked about, that is number of scholars and environmentalists that question that Zoom things. In IGNC, ma'am, there was a project on the paddy cultivation of Northeast India, and we did a lot of we actually collected a lot of types of rice and what are the rituals, what are the songs, what are the folk associated with those things. And we were mesmerized after knowing that only in Northeast you can have thousands and thousands folk song associated with the rice. There are more than 1,000 rice species which are present there, and every part of the Northeast will give you something very unique and very a very rare thing. So coming to the central India, where Madhya Pradesh, where this Gond community, the largest community after Bhil, and once they were the largest, now Bhil is the largest tribal community in India. They reside, and these there is a certain specific community in that Bhi. They call themselves Pardhan Gond. Pardhan Gond again. If you say Pardhan, it's not the superior Pradhan, the Hindi word, but Pardhan. The story says that when the seven brothers Goon's ancestor were having some dispute, uh, and the god Lingodev and Pendev, they became angry on them. Then that the Pardhan, the youngest brother out of the seven brothers, the youngest one, play a music from the bana tree and peace and make him that Lingodev on no उनको खुश किया प्रसन्न किया appeased him. And after that he said ki now this brother or the descent of this person will be considered as Pardhan Gond. Pardhan because he will not do any kind of agricultural activity, but he will be dependent on the food or dhan, the cereal, uh, given by the other six brothers. So it is Pardhan. That is how the word comes. So whatever if you go to the story of this Gond Ramani, you'll find that every character is associated with certain nature. Like it is Gond Ramani, the Lakshman is living in a Dunda tree, Sita is living in Bahara tree. Every character has a certain sacred grooves or a sacred tree where they are associated with. We all know that in the time of this anthropology, there is a theory of little and greater tradition, and we all know that when greater tradition, it encroaches many a time little tradition, and little tradition they transformed or imbibe or change itself in the form of greater tradition. So when I was working in the Gond Ramani, I found that. This Gond Ramayani is also it's not Ramayana, what Ramayana we know, the Ramayana of Kalidas or the Ramayana of Tulsidas. No, this is not Ramayana of Valmiki, not Ramayana of and Tulsidas, but it's their own story, their own folk tradition, which was later given a name of Ramayana because the character, the heroes, and the uh, the surroundings, the vicinity, niche, everything is completely forest type. And Ram is not their hero. Lakshman is their hero. You can get incidences of Pandavas. You can get examples of when some some devil attacked on that kidnapped the Sita. Then they call all the Pandavas to come and save Sita. So it's not like that it is Ramayana of the Gond, but it is given a name of Ramayana of the Gond. They have their own stories, they have their own lores, and everything is surrounded on that lores. So how it is again when you talk about tribal consciousness, environmental consciousness among the tribal communities, I don't find any tribals who do not associate themselves with the nature. Recently, I was working on Jaunsar of Uttarakhand, which is my actually PhD area as well as, and presently I'm doing a research on the temple of these those area. So I found that even the water of which is oozes out from the nature is considered as Devta ka pani. Devta ka pani is the water that is dedicated to the god, and nobody no one except the priest of the temple has any authority to enter in that territory. So they have their traditions, their rituals, their practices are evolve in a way that the nature is being protected by itself through this process. So they do not interfere. They do not what we developed, so-called developed people do, we exploit the resources. No, they don't do. They just use the resources, they leave those resources. When the consumption, जो गांधी जी के, according to गांधी जी की, nature has everything for the need of people, but it doesn't have anything for the greed of the people. वो जो philosophy है, that philosophy is easily reflected and it is easily found in the tribal community. When you go to the art of the Gonds or art of the uh, any other tribal community, whether it's the tribes of Jharkhand, Sorai, or just take any example, you'll find that whatever element they have, whatever color they are using, they do not use any chemical color. When I was doing on working on this Gond community and I interviewed the Venkat Shyam, the famous Gond artist, he told me that no, they never use any chemical paint. They extract leaf, flowers, and other dyes from the forest, and they dry it. They convert into the color, and then they paint whatever. And when I was asking you, when you are asked how to do the painting, what consciousness you have when you start painting. According to them, whatever we are painting, you just took look at it, and you will find nature everywhere, mostly plant, mostly animal, mostly birds. So चाहे वो a tree of life हो, वो चाहे even recently when he painted he showed me a painting of COVID, which he painted in the COVID. You'll find that all the 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 borders, they all are have leaves, flowers, and everything. So tribals, not only in the form of no uh, in their life, in their consumption, in their material culture, but also in the time in the form of their folk and art culture. They cannot dissociate themselves from the nature, and whatever they are, even I believe that their understanding of the things, their consciousness, their thinking, everything is associated with the nature. And that is what I wanted to say. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for all that insightful information. When you were talking, I was actually thinking about this book I had during my master's last year. I had Bhimayana. So that book was actually drawn by two Gond artists, Durgabai Vyam and Subhash Vyam. And they had exclusively mentioned how even the red color, they used red mati, mud
Marty,
to
yes.
make, yes, to make those. So I was constantly being reminded, yes, completely
I
nature.
interviewed Durga Bhai Vyam as well when she came to agency and doing painting on the Mahabharata and Ramayanas of India. So yeah, they told there how she developed her painting style, because you see every Gond artist had a very different pattern of painting. So all are associated with nature. Whatever they
Yes,
say in the nature or see in nature, they translate it in the form of art. Thank you.
yes. Thank you, sir. Our final speaker for the session is Dr. Jose. Sir, over to you now.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I am happy to be part of this session or discussion wherein we are bringing in environmental concerns and consciousness. So I believe, as we had in the last June 5th, the World Environment Day, when we celebrated with the theme land restoration, desertification, and drought resilience. So in fact, we were entering into these debates of how people of all planet and even other beings, living beings in the planet, are concerned about the ecology or environmental scenario. Why there is a concern? Because there is a situation where environment is made much depleted or much not livable for the human beings, of course, with climate change and so on, and for other living beings also. So today's discussion has a very important situation or context, I believe, as other panelists also shared, that ecosystems in the planet Earth is preserved by the indigenous communities in a very radical way, very big way. And very true, Dr. Panchali also and Dr. Prakash now mentioned that it is not with so much of effort they do it, but they do it with love. They do it with concern for their own fraternities and also the generations to come. That is a major thinking in the communities. When we have these resources are sustainable, our own people will benefit, our own brothers and sisters will benefit, but then generations of people and created beings on the planet Earth will benefit. That is exactly why they also do not hoard some way. That means resources are not so much taken and preserved or kept for in larger quantities by any community on the earth, especially tribal communities, because they believe that nature has bountiful resources, as Dr. Prakash mentioned, Gandhiji's perspective, that we have resources for everyone's need. The needs of the people are met by the Mother Earth, so to say. Mother gives abundantly for the humanity and the entire ecosystem. So we have bountiful resources. There is no point of or no danger of running short of the resources. So that is one of the ways they are, since they believe that they will not hoard in a higher measure or a bigger quantity, and thereby making resources available for individuals and communities. So this is also a way of, we can say this is a social responsibility, a sense of responsibility is shown in them when they preserve the resources and make use of the resources, and also may see the resources are not degraded, resources are not depleted. So a common running theme we can see that presence of the divine, as the speakers also said, the presence of the divine is very much in the ecology and environment. So any harm done to the environment is also some way going against the spirit world, which has given us bountiful resources. So that is one of the reasons why, especially indigenous communities, preserve the materials, preserve the earth, preserve the water, without even polluting. Of course, nowadays situations are changing in various parts of the earth. But then, therefore, a huge area, we are entering into a huge area of research or debate, wherein two major segments, so to say, are spirituality on the one side and nature on the other side. But then indigenous communities do not see this as compartments, as Dr. Panchali and Dr. Prakash mentioned that. So they do not see this as a segments, but this is a interconnected unit for the welfare of many people. So that social responsibility is practiced by the communities, and in a very special way, as Dr. Panchali said, Northeast has that type of a situation in a big measure. The situations are changing, of course. When we come to the tribal art and tribal literature proper, we see the mask making of some of the communities. You are all very well aware. The jewelries and the textiles and the potteries and basketry, wood carving and sculptures, etc. They are using a lot of materials from the nature itself. Again, situations are changing in some way, some part of the Northeast and other parts of the world. But they see that a lot of resources are given by the Mother Earth, so to say, Mother Earth, and these resources can be used, and also these resources goes back some way, go back to the Mother Earth some way. When when the depleting or the mask, for example, are thrown away, or wood carvings have become very old and not useful, or baskets are not useful, it goes back to the Mother Earth. The Mother Earth gives, and in a bountiful way, Mother Earth gives, and freely the artisans and the artists give back to the Mother Earth too. When we come to the tribal literature again, some of the panelists mentioned exactly, we do not have so many of the vibrant written tribal literatures, though there are a number of them, of course, because they are also oral traditions and community storytelling ways they are communicated to many generations. So we have literatures, but we need more of that research literatures for the larger number of people to read and understand the wealth, the wisdom of the ancestors. We call it the wisdom of the ancestors. The people have built up this wisdom and resources, and many more people should benefit from this type of discourse. So some of the challenges, as I am coming towards the end of this sharing, challenges are there because there are a number of disparities among the communities. Socioeconomic disparities are in big way existing. Market competitions are there in a big way because smaller artisans and artists, they find really difficult to enter into the highly competitive market. They are trying in their own ways, but then there are various challenges. So we need to counter these challenges to make our art and artisans to empower themselves. For that, we have pathways. I believe the communities themselves should be also interested. This is something like community knowledge. If community is interested, they will find their way out. They will find their way to sustain and overcome these challenges. Naturally, we need governance and policy-oriented discussions, policy-oriented support systems. But the community's initiative is one of the major source which will make an impact in their onward journey. So let me now stop this sharing. In case we have time, we will come for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for all of those information. As you talked about communities, I actually thought about this Native American, Indigenous American quote. They keep saying that this land does not belong to you, but you belong to this land. And I think as a mainstream society, we need to acknowledge this fact, specifically considering the climate change that we are having. So now we move on to the question answer session. My first question is for Dr. Bhattacharya. So, ma'am, I want to ask you regarding the fact that in the recent years, we have witnessed an increased effort to write and document tribal folklore. So, apart from the preservation of tribal beliefs, do you think this has led to the increased opportunities and interest towards the development of tribals?
Yes. I actually believe, see, when you ask this question, because you mentioned that documentation of tribal folklore is being done right now, it is being written down. So that quite naturally leads us to believe that for a very long time it has been oral in its nature. The legends, myths, folk tales, they have been oral in nature. And now with each passing generation, there is a growing need to document, to write down this lores. The reason being that as and when globalization is entering our lives, it is inevitable that the traditional ways are somehow taking a backseat, isn't it? So writing it down is a way of preserving it for the subsequent generations. Now, if we come to talk about the development of the tribes, I believe that it is actually, I won't say that in a massive way, but in a way it has the potential to develop the tribes. Okay, like how I will tell you, just one example. Let's say, for example, incorporating tribal folklore in the school curriculum, in the syllabus. So let's say, for example, if we talk about the folk tales of the Nagas, and incorporating some of these folk tales in the school books of young kids, So we have this kind of a small excerpt from Ramayana or a small excerpt from Mahabharata. We have this kind of picture books for kids. Now imagine having this kind of oral tales documented and incorporated in the syllabus. Don't you think that is a great way of actually creating an identity for this tribe? So that is definitely going to be very helpful. Secondly, it gives, I believe that by documenting these things and further disseminating it, this kind of knowledge actually gives these tribes a representation. It
Yes.
enhances their identity, it establishes their identity furthermore. And sometimes it leads to tourism also, like for example, this Jatayu Art Center is there in Kerala, in Kovalam,
Okay.
Kollam district, in Kollam district it is there. So this, basically that is a reflection of a legend, right? It's a touristy representation of a legend. The legend is preserved, it attracts tourists. These days we see so many bloggers going to these tribal villages, promoting a tribal way of life, an evening dedicated to tribal art forms and dances. So in a way it is developing these communities. But too much of anything again is not good. So if in a way we think that by documenting this, through that only we will be able to uplift the tribe, that is not going to happen for sure. But this can be one way of creating a platform for the tribes to represent themselves for the rest of the world. This is what I personally believe.
Thank you, ma'am. My next question is for Dr. Prakash Tripathi. Sir, I want to ask you regarding cross culturalization. So, sir, in this era of modernization, cross culturalization has become a very common phenomenon. A poignant example of this is seen in various kinds of artistic endeavors. Could you highlight some instances where modern art parallels some elements of tribal art?
Uh, I'm not very much involved in the modern art, but yeah, I understand one thing that tribal art is something which is very much, uh, very much basic and fundamental, and which is originated from their roots. So there are number of the things which has been used, which has includes the tribal arts, but tribal arts is being is being, now it is being glamorized because of its unique pattern, because of its unique color, unique style, and unique patterns. But what is the I don't know how modern art has impacted the tribal art. That I can't comment on it. But definitely, tribal art has make a space in the developed or the international market. What I found, because just see, if we talk about Gond Ramayana, Gond art only, that Gond art or Sorai art or Patachitra or Varli, everything has become a signature of India's tribal culture or India's art culture. Just name some of the famous Indian painter and artist, and you'll find Venkat Shyam or Anil Wagad. These are the names which has become so famous that they got international recognition as well. So tribal art has been introduced in the international market, international cultural areas, but I don't see that there is a much impact of modern art on the tribal community art practices, because tribal art is known for their uniqueness. Sorry, I got a call. So tribal art is known for their uniqueness, and if they allow any foreign element to enter in their practices, and or it so I think it will वो उनकी ना यूनिकनेस को खत्म कर देगा. It will perish that originality and rareness which is present in the tribal arts. And that is why, as Venkat Sham sir also told me, that we learn things, but we always follow our patterns. We always see uh, through our consciousness and we try to fit our art in the tribal in the modern world, not their art in our world. That is what I found, and that is what I got through these scholars.
Thank you so much, sir. My next question is for Dr. Jose. Sir, so what is the inspiration behind Sanskriti Northeastern Institute of Culture and Religion? What are some of the measures taken by this institute to preserve tribal culture?
Yes, thank you for this question. Sanskriti as a research center is existing about 18 years now, 18 years. And this institute is one of the institutes of our own society in international society. Our international headquarters is in Andropos, Germany. We have an Andropos Institute, a larger institute. And every zone, for example, Northeast zone, we are having this Sanskriti to interact with tribal professors in a very special way, professors and scholars, because as we believe, within every geographical area, there are indigenous wisdom. That is what I was also trying to say. So there is a tribal wisdom or indigenous wisdom. So that has to be some way studied by us, and some way we have to become a catalyst of making this wisdom reach many more people. So that was the effort of Sanskriti for the last 18 years. And we have edited, as you said, about 40 books now, volumes in English, of course, as Dr. Panchali said, every book is in English to make books reach out to many more people. And we have a very good library, not a very large library, but a few thousands of books with Northeastern themes, cultures, religions, and customary laws, and so on. So what we do is we connect university scholars in a very special way, and we have some workshops, interactions, panel discussions, and a number of Google Meets and webinars now, COVID times especially. So we are building up this academic fraternity in Northeast India. That is a basic target and aim of Sanskrit.
Thank you, sir. My next question is for Dr. Bhattacharya again. Ma'am, so do tribal men and women view nature differently despite belonging to the same community? If so, how can this difference in subjectivity be explained?
Yes, that's actually a very interesting question, and I will that was actually one of the aspects which I tried to study through my dissertation also. So when we talk about the perception of nature or the treatment of nature by men and women belonging to the same community, actually what I have observed is that the treatment is actually different, and the treatment is different for a very fundamental reason. Let's say, for example, they view a man like it is based on a lot of things, the division of labor, resource management, then the kind of knowledge that they want to transmit, or day-to-day interaction with nature. Depending on all these factors, I have observed, and that is also something that you will see when if you read the literary outputs, the literary outcomes from these tribal communities, that men are mostly associated with hunting, fishing, then agricultural tasks, which like works that involve heavy labor, like physical manual labor. On the other hand, the women of the same community will be more engaged in works like gathering wild fruits, herbs, processing food, and then gardening, collecting firewood. So their work is more limited to the domestic periphery, whereas men, they are associated mostly with this heavy labor work. So naturally the treatment automatically differs between men and women. Women are more nurturing in their approach, whereas men, they believe in providing sustenance. They believe they are the providers, so they believe in providing sustenance, and for that, if they have to take some resource from the nature, although in a sustainable manner, but even if they have to do it, they will do it. But when it comes to women, they are more like traditional in their approach. Like they are more into growth, healing. They are more aware of the cycle of life and death. So these things, this is how their approach to nature differ. Even within the same community, men are actually associated with the work that require physical labor, and women are more associated with work that require their domestic attention. And men pass on their knowledge to their son. The skill of hunting, the skill of fishing, they will pass it on to their son. Whereas women, they will pass on their knowledge of how to maintain a household with limited resources to their daughters. So this is how generation after generation, the treatment of nature somehow varies from men and women. But this is something which I personally believe is not exclusive to the tribal communities. This is something that is probably true for us as well. Like the way, even though things are changing with each passing generation, things are changing, but still that is kind of instinctive. I believe that where men are mostly associated with works that require physical involvement, and women are more the nurturer. So this is where the concept of conservation and preservation, the difference between these two come into picture. Men are perceived as the conserver of nature, and women the preserver of nature, somebody who tries to keep the nature in its original intact form, setting aside a piece of land that is untouched. Whereas men, they try to use nature but in a sustainable manner. So conserver and preserver, that dichotomy comes into picture here.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. My next question is for Dr. Tripathi again. So, sir, how was your experience as the editor of Gone Ramayani? How is Gone Ramayani different from classical Ramayana, and what is the role of nature or environment in this book?
As I have already told that Gord Ramayani is not the Ramayana of Tulsidas or the Sanskrit Ramayana of Valmiki. And if we are aware about, and most of you must be, that there are more than 300 Ramayanas in India, and every Ramayana has their own meaning and their own interpretations. So going to the how different Ramayana is, Gond Ramayana is from the classical Ramayana, is that classical Ramayana is about Ram's Ayan. Ramayan is basically Ram's Aman, the coming of the Rama. So wherever the Ram went along with the Sita and Lakshman, the whatever incidences has been taken, the entire Ramayana has written accordingly. But the Gond Ramayana is completely different. Gond Ramayana is not a journey of Ram or the hero of that literature, but it is about the community. It is about the nature where they are living. It is about their interaction. It is about the different local heroes, heroines, and folklores. You can see that there are 7 chapters in the Gond Ramayana, and only 1 chapter is dedicated for the for the Sita, or you can say only 1 chapter you can correlate it with the Ramayana. That Sita ka when she gives the Sita Haran, yeah. So that is the only chapter which is which is which has a connection with the Ramayana. Otherwise, all the other chapters, whether it is about Kupaya, why it is about the every other chapters in Rakamini or someone, so they are their own their local folklores, which has been translated in a way that can connected or can related with the Ramayana. Otherwise, there are certain names which has been incorporated. There are no stories associated with the Ramayana. No story. Lakshman is their hero. Ramayana. How come Ramayana is the story of Rama, but in the Gond Ramayana, hero is Lakshmana. The second most powerful hero is Hanumana and the Bhim. So you can see there are number of differences which usually suggest that it's not Ramayana, it's not Gond's Ramayana, since it is narrated in the way that like Pandavani, Ramayani. These are the things which is became very common in the central India when the people started singing about folk singing about the legends. So every legend which has ऐसा नहीं कि Pandvani is about the Pandavas story. It has the stories of their local heroes as well. Same likewise, it's Gond Ramayani is also not the Ramayana per se, but it has the stories of their own deities, their own god and goddesses with certain with who have been given the name of Ramayanas or the epics of northern India, or you can say Mahabharata or Ramayana. So I don't find that that is why I say ki if you go to read Gond Ramayani by thinking with the thinking that you are going to read Ramayana, you will be shocked to know, which we anthropologists call cultural shock. You will get a cultural shock and you will find that it's completely different from the classical Ramayana.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. I move on to Dr. Joseph. Sir, so do women in tribal communities make active decisions regarding the preservation of ecological balance? What is the tribal perspective towards such agential endeavors by women?
Yes, both yes and no, in fact. But in a big way, yes, because tribal communities consider their women folk almost equal to men folk. And they see that both the categories of people are contributing to the larger welfare of the society at large. Uh, Among some communities, we may find much more better, maybe matrilineal societies, as Dr. Panchali was telling also. We have in Meghalaya, there are preferential option, preferential treatment also. But there are also differences in another communities when we take major other communities. However, when it comes to the seed protection of the seed for the kitchen garden, agricultural operations in a limited way nearer to the homestead, and looking after children in a big way from dawn to dusk, so to say. So the decisions of women are taken with much concern and care. There are also customary laws in some communities which are not making the women folk enter into decision-making platforms. So there are difficulties and differences there. But overall, when we see the communities or families see that women are part and parcel of the larger planning and decision making of the community and family in a very special way, village in a very special way again. So their position or their contribution to the larger community is tremendous, and we can say they are very much at par with each other. So that is the observation of mine.
Thank you so much, sir. With that, we come to an end to tonight's discussion. I thank each one of you for sharing your knowledge and valuable insights with us. I'm sure our audience has had a wonderful time and I've learned a lot as well. We are grateful to you all for taking out time out of your busy schedules and for being a part of this discussion. It was an absolute pleasure to have been in your company this evening. This is to remind that we are calling for submissions on tribal history and tribal representation in history, the details of which can be viewed on www.tellmeyourstory.biz. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Barsha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, you may take your leave.